Welcome back, young traveler. This one's going to be a long one. Now, after the party went to the Goblin Cave, they spent the night at Grimshank's new hut. In the morning, they came across Skeemith, carrying barrels of honey that he was delivering to the Temple of Hiawatha for medical purposes, along with a few that he'd sell at other places. Now, all things could not be well with the party. Ulfgar took this as a challenge of goblin threat, him having difficulties in his homeland with goblins. But the rest of the party calmed him down as Skeemith went on his way. Along this time, Ulfgar grabbed a bucket of blood from Grimshanks the troll that Hart would use to make potions, and you would usually pay handsomely for. Of course, when the bucket arrived at Hart's, it turned out to be water, and had dust that sparkled in the light around it. Another trick of the Fey folk. This did not stop Ulfgar, for later he went back to get more blood. This time, instead of water, he got wine. And in order to make any profit, he sold it to the Artisan Boar, a wealthy tavern, and what they did was simply mix it in with their current stock. Unfortunately, this led to a unusual predicament, but before that, as the party came back to town and stayed in their normal hangout, the Drunken Horde, one of my messengers, a Bullseye, talked with the party. They came to me and asked what it was about. I informed them of the meeting that was coming up between me, the Leonin King, a seer from the Turtle folk, and the church leader, the Mouth of Hiawatha. I also asked them to think of a name for their group, and this is when they came up with the name, the Call of the Wild. As they did so, they even plastered it on their cart, Call of the Wild, to help spread their fame. Now, this was about the time that Ulfgar went for the second bucket, and a few things happened. Hart from Hart's Enchanted Wares tasted some of the wine and found it was wine before Ulfgar sold it to the Artisan Boars. Now, this left us in a troubling predicament, for it turned out that the wine wasn't just turned from blood, but was also tricked into becoming a sleeping potion of sorts. Due to the fact that Hart tasted it, he also was infected, which is quite troubling, for in a situation like this we would require his aid to make sure that those that are knocked out are able to gain sustenance and not pass away by hunger. We had to call out for more help and deal with that later. But during this time, before news spread significantly, the meeting took place. Now, the thing about our turtle visitors is King Sarju has the ability to get visions of the future and speak with the voice of a goddess, giving out prophecies. One that came to the party that turned to be quite useful goes as such. The Feywild has been darkened by outside forces. Fiendish nature has corrupted. Darkness shall spread unless it's stopped. That's actually the one that sent him to us and had us start this meeting. But others that were spoken, most to party members about specific things. One that I heard was given in a whisper to Selene, in the tongue of Sylvan. The royal jelly from the Golden Goblin helps the Fae's mood brighten. Now, this helped her to understand that there was something that Schemeth had that could help them. And it did. Of course, Schemeth asked for things in return, but this was doable. Now, as the party was called, they found that, as our laws dictate, we are not permitted into the Fey Forest, and thus them as outsiders could help us bend the rule a bit, so that way we are not breaking it, and help can be had. This is good, and they agreed to help. But before their time to move was done, Ulfgar had a challenging time with King Sanzig, the Leonin king, and took offense to how he spoke of his beard, seeing as Leonins pride themselves on their manes, and dwarves their beards. This was a trying offense to Ulfgar, and when he heard of the wine that put people to sleep, decided to take some, and tried to persuade King Sanzig to partake. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you see it, Ulfgar did not clean the wine and just got it from half-filled bottles that were drunk by people, so it was unappetizing to King Sanzig, and refused it. This would have been the end, but one of the members of the party spoke of the properties of the wine, and King Sanzig's anger got the best of him. He grabbed the bucket of wine and threw it in Ulfgar's face. Ulfgar being surprised about this, accidentally took a gulp of it instead of holding his breath like he tried. This made it so he was also one that was affected by this curse and had to stay behind as the rest of the party moved forward. Now, one of the things about the preparation made is that the ingredient that Skimith had that Celine needed. Turned out Skimith had what was called royal jelly from the giant bees in the area. And Skimith spoke, saying that he would suggest only giving it to a queen or those that would become queens, saying it may have terrible results otherwise. This turned out to be fine and was needed for such an occasion. Along with this, the party went about gathering supplies from several places and preparing. During this time, Krusk himself got a prophecy from King Serju, which said, "When you come across pirates, find their captain first, before hurting their crew." This particular foreseeing hadn't taken place for quite a while after this, but Krusk still kept it into his heart. During this time, Erden asked Oak, Daughter of Elm, about the books, and found out about which ones were lost. Krusk seemed to have gone over the journal of Zaril, the leader of the goblins that they came across way back when, and found interesting entries about the Barghest that was stuffed, and that it was killed 3 years ago before they found the journal. Let me see, what else? While Erden was out and about, he too ran into King Serju, who received a fortune for him, saying, "Friends once lost will rise again. Brothers slain once may rise again." And this was a foretelling of what would come after the party came back from the Fey Forest. But Erden took it upon him to remember this and changed fate. ever so slightly, it seems. After the party took care of preparations for their journey, Leonard, the second of command of King Zanzig, a hyena folk, would lead the party to the Fey Forest and told them it would be 3 days to a mousefolk village, 2 days to the Leonin camp, and then 3 more days to the Fey Forest. So they did just that. In the mousefolk village, they found that it was guarded by 2 minotaurs doing trading on watches. One named Ark, the other one Medius, who turned out to be family of Theo Trausen. They also spoke with a mousefolk referred to as Old Lady Willow, and learned knowledge of herbs that may help make potions, that may help them on their journey. The party helped out the mousefolk village where they could. After traveling from the mousefolk village, the party made their way to the Leonin camp. When the party arrived at the Leonin camp, King Zanzig required them to prove themselves in fighting. He had them fight cockatrice that would at least prove them to be adults of the Leonin people, as it would be a rite of passage for many young cubs to fight such a creature by themselves and win. This would at least give the Leonin people a little bit of hope, and if the Call of the Wild could not do this, would be banned from traveling any further. And with the party succeeding King Zanzig's challenge, they continue on and made their way to the Fey Forest, finding brambles blocking their way, and Celine, being the only that spoke Sylvan, listened and found a wayward princess of the Fey Forest, a Princess Minnie, and through some persuasive talking, Celine gave Poppy, or Minnie, the royal jelly. This did indeed do as schemed said, and the will of the goddess that King Sarju spoke of, it did brighten her mood, allowing her to feel more confident in herself with the passing of her mother, and allowed the party entry. I must tell you that during this time, Ella had stayed behind for some reasons, but as the party went into the forest and made a few days and camped a few days and traveled to the center, they came across demons of different types and fought them, along with blights. And this is where they met back up with Ella, with her new companion, August, who helped her travel quickly and catch up with the party. With this, August took his leave, and the party continued on. They made their way to the center, where they found a cursed tree that was corrupting the Fey Forest and had corrupted two of the guardians of the forest, two noble treants that were seeking to destroy a pillar of protection from a known portal connecting the material planes to the Feywild, so that way only those that had permission could cross. So the party, on a time limit, sought to destroy the tree and free the treants from its corruption. They did this, and did well, although losing one of the bear cubs. It might have been two, but I cannot quite remember. They also noticed a fruit growing on the tree that was taken by a creature. After killing it, turned out to be a quasit. This was very good indeed, and was taken by the party and stowed away for safekeeping. After the destruction of the tree by fire by most, a interesting situation occurred. A goblin, saying he was under order from Zaril, gifted the party an alchemist jug to put out the fire and use the salt water to make sure that it would die completely, leaving this area barren for a while, but at least killing off that tree. The party, confused, but took up this gesture, hearing the words of Zaril, knowing he must be close by and invisible, breaking the treaty of the Fae. Whether this would come to be consequential, who knew? But if it did, it would have been on him. The Fae may, of course, just been busy with the situation, as much damage was done to the column protecting from the portal, and I actually believe it was indeed broken and would require quite a while to repair completely. or build a new one. I do not quite know. The party's a little skeptical on which happened, but certainly did lead to trouble. But with this, and with their journey done, the party would make their way back. And make their way yes. Now I remember. After making their way out of the Fey Forest, and seeing that some of the corruption was subsiding, Princess Minnie, spoke to the party and wanted to reward them for their good. She listened to some fireflies and gave out rewards for what they had wished. Balasar received a boon to his sword that would be stronger and that he could light the way. Erden had his amulet enchanted to be better than it was before, so he could commune with animals better. Krosk had an enchanted dagger that would brighten the light of the young ones. Celine, who simply asked to be a friend of fairies, received a boon herself and was given permission to always be able to return to the Fey Forest. Ella, who asked that her bear Fisher could grow up full grown and strong, had that happen himself. The Fae enchanted him to gain the size of a full-grown bear in an instant. This proved to be quite useful, for now she could ride on Fisher as a mount. And it seemed quite fortuitous that the one that did not partake in the wishing of the Wish Festival did not make it to the Fey Forest. The party met back up with Leonard and travelled back. Along the way, they stopped at the Leonin village once again and enjoyed seeing a fan club showing up from the daughter of Leonard. His daughter, Hannah, seemed to have taken an interest in Celine and wanted to be just like her. And with that, they made their way back to inform me of what happened and to find some troubling things that would happen. But that is a tale for another day.